that she would be late if at all, but I think we have enough.
Good.
So, welcome. All right.
T's here.
T's here. And before we approve the agenda, I would like to add an item between 6 and 7. TF Taxiatis is here, who's representing Little River Holdings, wants to give us an update on the Gateway project. So I would like to make that addition. Does anybody else have any comments or additions? Then I would ask for approval.
I would approve the agenda with the adjustment.
Thank you, Karen.
Second.
I heard Bruce first. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Any public comment? Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. Okay. You'll have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Approval of minutes from December 14 for our annual meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Jody.
Support.
Thanks, Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 5, minutes from our special meeting on December 14th.
I wasn't there, but I will approve those minutes. I read through.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
I'll support.
Thank you. DM, sorry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Financials. Hopefully you had a chance to read over them. Any comments, Mark or Carmen or anybody else?
Just as a reminder, a new budget sheet was provided to you that shows the budget actual and over budget, so that help guide your oversight of what's going on with the DDA. So I think Carmen's done a great job of putting that together and providing that, and I think and she'll give you some more information. But otherwise, as steady as she goes. And we also will have bills there that include a payment to Jeff Gordon for the facade grant balance of the work that's been done on the 3 storefronts, and in our usual services bills to the accountants and to the chamber.
Mark, if I'm reading this correctly, I'm just looking at hops and props and how we certainly missed the target on that one. Was there something significant that it looks like our budget versus our actual was quite different?
Any comments on that, Carmen?
For the half and half portion,
Yeah.
it very well could have been, are you looking at the income versus expenses?
Budget versus actual.
Yeah, so it just depends on what we budgeted for the half and half line item, and then of course it's going to show what the actual income was for the year. So I'm just not sure if, they had a good, they probably, what they did was budgeted based on what they had as income from last year to project for this year's budget. And then of course, the income is based off of whatever was made from this year's half and half.
Great. It's not a bad problem, but it's like, wow, it's quite a difference.
So, okay.
Does that answer your question?
Were you going to say something, Mark?
Yeah, though, so that I'm clear, on the document I'm looking at, we're under budget on the expenses by $2,500, $2,200, and then on the revenues we were over. We didn't budget enough, which is okay. We were surprised by about $15,000. So we came in high on revenues and low on the expenses.
Yeah,
Okay.
just for you know, it's just a thought process, like, okay, is this an anomaly? Do we kind of put this like a higher revenue, you know, a
Yeah.
higher income for next year, but then we miss it? You know, it's something
Yeah.
that you have to kind of say, what happened? Was it because people were sick and tired of being at home and wow, we had quite a turnout?
I can speak to that a little. I don't think they budget very well to project sales. I don't think it's possible. You know, they probably could have, but then you throw a rain day in there, and it
Everything
doesn't.
goes, yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're pretty conservative, and I know that Carrie was more concerned just about are our expenses in line,
Right, yeah.
and then profit is profit.
I just don't want to set us up for hitting targets that we won't ever hit.
Yeah.
Stay conservative.
Yes, I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
So this one thing that we will do in the near future, we will have a conversation about hops and props for this year, and that will, perhaps even next month's agenda, so that we can talk about what to expect and what might happen. So I'm glad you raised the question. We'll put it on the agenda and have some more conversation, because the team is looking into what that might entail for the future. So,
Okay. Anyone else?
Mark, did that bill about the sign, the plug, and did that make it this one?
no. I think as we discussed, we didn't want to bring that up.
And I talked to Jeff about it, but I think just letting people know. So, Jeff, can you talk a little bit about what happened over at the sign?
So the DDA has a sign on US 31, just a little bit south of River Street. It's on the east side. The lights have been out on that for quite some time, and they're in real bad shape. I had mentioned it probably years ago when we still had the design committee, but the Public Works also plugs in Christmas decorations into that area, and this year the outlet wasn't working, so we couldn't even do that. So we had Top Line go and do a repair. My intention was just at least get the outlet working, but they ended up replacing the lights also with new LEDs. So it was an $800 bill for the complete work that was done, and I had just sent the invoice to Mark, just wondering if the DDA would participate and split that with the Public Works 50/50. It wasn't prior approved, so I understand if you guys say no. I've actually already paid the invoice so that Top Line doesn't get caught in the middle, but that was just a simple question request if you were willing to split it.
I'm glad I got repaired, and I thought it's fair if we do 50/50.
I think it's very fair.
So we'll put that in the next, just put that in the next.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, anything else? Financials? I would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make it.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Okay, item 6.5. I'll introduce T. Some of you know T. F. Taxiatis. T's worked with the city for a number of years contractually. He was on the DDA board for a number of years, and he is now working with Little River Holdings on the Gateway project.
Good morning. It's interesting to be in this building. The last time I was involved with the DDA were down at City Hall. I don't know where you stand here when you talk.
You're good right there. Thank you.
So we wanted to give you an update on the Gateway project because, as you probably know, the project has been placed on hold about 3 months ago because of current economic conditions, primarily the cost of construction financing costs, issues with availability of labor for the hotel. And also there were some issues related to the use of the grant and loan that the city received from the state for the purpose of demolishing the buildings at the Gateway properties and do the environmental assessments. So I was brought on board in sometime in October, and since then we have been looking at the background of the project, exactly how it evolved from a concept that actually the DDA was involved in creating back 7 years ago, that included a number of buildings and structures starting from US 31 along River Street and continuing all the way to Division Street. The plan that was most recently approved, the site plan, and also a plan that I believe that the DDA has seen, includes a 100-room hotel on the property where the House of Flavors used to be, and parking lot along the south side of River Street from US 31 to Division. The original concept plan included a hospitality type of building at the House of Flavors property. Then it included mixed-use building along US 31, residential building in the corner of River Street and Division, and parking and or apartments between those two buildings. So in about October, the Little River Holdings decided that they wanted to look at the whole project, at the entire project, as it was originally conceived. So there were discussions with the city, and so we're in the process now of looking at the various components of the overall project: housing, parking, commercial, and hospitality. Last night we gave a short briefing to the city council, and I did show them a plan that I don't know if you have seen it. Is there a way to put it? That's okay.
No.
I can, but essentially, this is the hospitality building, the commercial and residential on US 31, housing, apartments on the west side of the property, with at least two-story parking between the two buildings, and we're also looking at the feasibility of putting apartments and or some other use
T,
above the parking.
could you pass that around? Do you need it?
We can pass it around.
Okay, thank you.
It is, this is the plan that was conceived some time ago. And this is the overall concept that we're looking at right now. It is not going to be just like that. So I just want to make it clear. But we're looking at all of those components. So we're in the process of having consultants doing feasibility studies on the parking, on the housing component, on the hospitality component. I call it hospitality component because it may or may not be a hotel, it may be another type of hospitality venue such as condo hotel, maybe condos. So we're looking at the feasibility of that. And we're going to have discussions with all of the stakeholders, of which DDA is an integral part. And among other things, we will be pursuing a brownfield plan for tax increment brownfield TIF capture for all or portions of the project. When the hotel and the parking lot were under consideration and they had the site plans, they had started on the brownfield plan, which, however, was not for the overall project. And as you know, when we do projects like this, I mean, this is a $50 million plus project. It requires assistance from the state and in form of grants, loans, tax increments, and so on. And however, the state needs to see the entire plan for the project in order to consider how they can support it. And that will be the same for the brownfield, the city brownfield authority. So we expect that sometime in late spring of this year or summer, we'll be able to have a concept plan that then we can proceed with discussing it with all of the stakeholders, the state, the city, the DDA. The DDA, as I said before, is going to be an important component of this because, among other reasons, is the DDA will have to consider foregoing the capture of the DDA TIF to allow the Brownfield Authority to capture both the local but also the state taxes, the school taxes that will be reimbursed by the state to the schools. So, and as you're doing with other projects, I understand there is another project that you have under consideration. DDA will be an important component of that. One of the issues that have come up recently by Planning Commission, Brownfield Authority, and we hear from others, is the appearance of the property. The retaining wall where the former American dry cleaners used to be. Right now, the retaining wall is still in place, and the contractor, following demolition of the building, put a two sets of supports. And we've been asked to look into the integrity of that wall. We did have a structural engineer look at that the last couple of weeks. We're getting the report anytime, but preliminary they told us that as it is, that the retaining wall is not going to go anywhere. We need to monitor it, and we need to maintain some of those braces, those metal long braces that you have seen, at least the lower set of them. We had some discussions about can we replace that wall on a temporary basis until construction starts, which can be at least a year and a half, if not two. We're going to have some discussions with the Brownfield Authority and with you about how to fund that retaining wall. The retaining wall is something that will be covered through future Brownfield TIF, but if in order to do it now, we'll have to get some prior approvals, and it's doubtful that the state can even provide that prior approval. The other issue related to the site is the fenced area and the banners. As you know, those banners have been replaced like 3 times because every time the wind blows, they come down. So we took them down recently. The banners were provided by the Visitors Bureau, and to my knowledge, unless there were some that were through the DDA, no.
That was a CVB.
But definitely for the winter, we cannot have the banners. As related to the fence was initially installed for as required for the demolition. However, it is also serves as a due care measure, meaning that the soils at the property contain contamination. And it is the Little River Holdings due care obligation to keep people from getting on that portion of the property and be potentially exposed to the contamination. We do understand that that fence is not, I'm so sorry. I thought I'd turn it off. It was off for some reason, but so we had some initial discussions. Actually, first time yesterday we met with Mark and Kyle and Bill about that, and we talked about some potential temporary measures to make the site look nicer, especially maybe not even this summer, but especially next summer when the reroute of 31 for the construction of the bridge is completed. We're going to prepare a proposal both for the wall, the retaining wall, and for the fenced area, and we'll discuss it with the DDA and with the city and the City Brownfield Authority. And that will be in the next week or so. Finally, we will need to have discussions with the DDA about the parking structure and what type of participation, if any, the DDA would be interested in the parking structure, in use and or management of it. But that's going to be a few months down the road. Finally, we would like to coordinate with the DDA and the city any work on the Riverwalk, in north of our property. And also, I understand that there are streetscape plans that you are involved with. We would like to coordinate those so that there is the potential for making some of those streetscape expenses to be part of the overall brownfield plan to make them reimbursable, if reimbursable in the future. So those are without taking a lot of your time, that's kind of a summary of where we are, we're at, and where and what we see to be the issues that we'll have to work with you. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I have one, excuse me, right off the bat. Thank you very much for that report this morning. I think we've all been kind of anxiously awaiting some of the new plans for the Gateway project. I did just hear you say, though, I have two questions, actually. I did just hear you say that perhaps not this summer, but next, as far as doing something as far as beautification of that land. Is the downtown business or I'm just kind of concerned about that verbiage, as last summer it was demolition, and we did have the banners up, but you're exactly correct. Every time the wind blows, the banners come down. So I'm just really concerned about the sightliness of that being the representation as people see when they turn left versus right down River
The
Street.
entrance to the downtown, to the city, kind of.
Correct, yes.
I know, I'm aware of it, and I said perhaps not this summer because initially we thought that this needs to be addressed right away. Now, we understand that with the construction of the bridge, the traffic will be rerouted through First Street, correct, Jeff?
The secondary detour, yes.
But the issue is that if there is some traffic that will go down through River Street, and I don't know if that is the case, then there is more, there will be.
It will be allowed, yes.
So there is more urgency in dealing with that corner.
Yes.
So, like I mentioned earlier, we're meeting today with engineers and with contractors to get some cost estimates for dealing with that retaining wall, thus removing the braces, to dealing with the open area. What we may have to do is put a topsoil layer and put seed, grass, and then put some kind of barrier around the property, again, as part of our environmental due care obligations. But that to be determined. So in the next week or two, you're going to see our what we're proposing to do.
My second question is in the original talks of the Gateway project. So today I heard you mention some parking structures, some housing, some hospitality area.
Yes.
Is there still plans, or has there ever, I think there were, is there still plans for any restaurants on that property?
There are, we're considering a lot of different potential uses of the property. We believe that it needs to be some type of a restaurant. And especially for the hospitality component, the building, we're going to have some type of dining or restaurant type, whether it's breakfast and lunch or breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I cannot tell you at this point. We honestly have not decided that because there is a number of other things that we have to determine before we get to the level of detail.
Okay.
But yes, that's the desire, to have some dining, some restaurant type establishment there.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
Karen.
no,
Go ahead. I actually just have a comment. T, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. I'm a member of the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, and I do not hold this seat representing them, so I'm just speaking as a tribal member. I think, and I've always had this concern, is the potential for any kind of backlash on the tribe for the continuous development or non-development of that area. So just my comment is, I think it would be helpful, perhaps, for Little River Holdings to have some sort of communication with the city. I don't know if that's appropriate, but I really am concerned about that area and the beautification that Kelly brought up, or excuse me, Deanna brought up, and how that looks on the tribe.
And Little River Holdings has the same concern, even though
Good.
the holdings are kind of separate entity from the tribe. Still,
But
I
when you
understand
hear
the
Little
optics.
River, everybody thinks the casino, right?
That's right.
And the casino is not a part of this project
Yeah.
whatsoever, so.
And we had that discussion actually after the work session with the council last night
Okay.
about the need to proceed faster on that.
Thank you. I appreciate you hearing me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody.
I'm also a statement, nice to see you again. We're
Yeah,
on the board
it's
together.
been a few years.
Yeah. Mine is a statement too, you know, it's like we went through this whole process, and the first draft that they presented was beautiful with a 2-story multi-use type of maybe office buildings or something on the south side, and, you know, an economic type of, I don't know, where you could kind of build your
The
business
incubator.
type of incubators. You
You're
know, that-
referring to this structure, right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a 2-story. You know,
Correct, correct.
It was a beautiful plan, and I really agreed with it, and was on board, and the DDA gave up our property. Well, we didn't give it up. We made a deal about giving our property to this investment so that we had a piece of this and everything. So when I see the empty lots and I hear more about parking lots and stuff like that, I get concerned. And it makes it difficult for me to kind of go, okay, now you need TIF, and now you need this, and now you need that. And I get it, $50 million, nobody has that. That's not chump change. That's a lot of money. And there needs to be a lot of support for it. But it is what everybody's saying. You know, I'm cautiously listening because we are on everybody else in the downtown to clean it up. And, you know, we want a better presentation. We're going to be putting a lot of money into our streetscape, into our river walks, and it's like, and then go, wait a minute, why these guys down on this end just get to have a fence line and property that's, you know, gravel for 2 years. So, you know, just to bring this group into the understanding that, you know, we appreciate and want to see growth. Housing is great. I've met with some of your people to talk about housing. I agree, but at the same time, we're walking a fine line here. You know, I don't want to say, oh, it's okay for this group, but we're going to go down on this end of that River Street and, you know, tell this guy or gal, you know, you got to do this, you got to do this, got to do this. It's just a statement. I just want, you know, everybody to understand that we have to have something. I just can't live year after year with just a fence line and gravel.
Well, this project certainly will not take the 10 to 12 years that another project downtown has taken. But the reality is that the hotel and the parking lot that was planned until a few months ago is just not sustainable. Especially in light of another 120-room hotel. Certainly there is room and need for more hotel or hospitality spaces or rooms, but not that size, not 100 rooms. So we're looking at that.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have a hospitality consultant that we engage to look at different types of rooms, apartments, condos. We're looking at everything.
The other thing about housing, and again, we knew we had like 400, we need at least 400 homes, single-family homes for, to kind of improve our housing crunch and situation. We've seen lots of plans, there's lots of interest. Now the county, and it's the township north of us, has plans for like 200 and some apartment building. We have another apartment, we have the RAD conversion that's happening here. You guys are talking about an apartment system. It's like, I just don't want to oversaturate with apartments. We need single-family homes too. The idea could be maybe if some of these apartments are reasonable, persons who maybe are retiring and don't want to take care of a home anymore will move to the apartments, and we can have single-family homes being generated in the community. I just get concerned. It's the same concerns I had and stated at our county meeting. It's just like all these apartment things are being built. I just get concerned that I don't know if anybody's here as the Harbor Village project went up, and then it just died. And then we had all those buildings sitting for so long, it was oversaturated. And so, it took almost 10 years before we kind of brought it back up to what it is.
Well, in a downtown setting like we have, there is no, the option of single-family homes just doesn't work. So we are, as you know, we have been surveying major employers in the area to see what is specific need for professional apartment or housing in a downtown setting. And this project, at this point in time, we do not foresee doing affordable or low-income housing at that location. It will be something in the order of 40 to 50 apartments, new apartments, similar to the type and size of the small apartments at Edgewater and North Channel. That's the model that we're looking at.
Okay, we need to move on.
Yep.
Thank you very
Well,
much,
thank you.
Dee. Appreciate it, and hopefully
Great
this is the first of many updates to come. So, thanks again. Moving on to executive report, Mark Miller.
Okay, hello and good morning, everyone. Good to be back, and let's cover some of the things we have going on. One, I want to keep you informed of plans for road closures. There was some discussion a couple minutes ago about that, a question about the routing. Just want to put the marker down that July 2023 to October 2023, the construction plan from MDOT is stating that will be the time when we have a road closure. So basically, end of July to the beginning of October. So just wanted to put that marker down. There'll be a second closure in 2024, but I don't have that memorized yet. Let me get that to you if it's necessary, but there'll be a second closure for about a couple months, I believe, in the early spring.
Mark, is that specific to bridge closure?
Specific to US 31 bridge closure.
Thank you.
There'll be other work done throughout the year, so the work doesn't stop. It's just that they will have the bridge open to traffic during certain parts of that process. So there may be lane closures, but they're certainly will be open, so people will be able to drive through. The detours, as Jeff mentioned, there's going to be a primary detour around the city, and then a secondary detour within the city. And that's going to impact the number of people driving through Manistee during the 2023-2024 season. Okay, the budget discussion that we had in December, is that loaded up, or?
The tip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get that started. So I wasn't able to complete the mission last month. Just want to hit a couple of highlights on this. Thank you, Carmen. And so I'll make this quick. This isn't going to be long. All right. Real quick, I hope this was helpful, but the purpose and authority, I wanted to cover that again. Economic growth, revitalization, deterioration in business districts, historic pres. We have the ability to acquire property. And then financing using TIF for our locally adopted plans, issuance of bonds, and so forth. So those are our responsibilities or our authorities given to us by the state of Michigan. All right, and we were going to walk through the TIF plan. All of this was done in early 2020, and there's a pie in the sky kind of view of everything we can throw at it. It's the kitchen sink. The numbers, we don't have enough money to make this all happen, right? So we have to be smart about how we choose to spend the money that we do have from the city TIF taxes that we capture. So Riverwalk, we got a grant for that. Streetscape improvements, we're focusing on that. And then facade grants. I kind of see those are our main priorities. So when you look at the overall money here, we have budgeted for our obligation for the college Riverwalk Plaza, $250,000. That's in the plan. We're going right up to that and using that. On the streetscape enhancements, that's a higher number than we probably can budget for, but $1.45 million. So that's the placemaking for the streetscape. We move along with some of the other things. We have $100,000 in for property acquisition and a fund. We probably won't use additional TIP monies for that, but it's sitting there and available. Facade grants, over time, we wanted to put in money every year. Last year was fantastic. We spent $50,000, or we're going to let out $50,000 for 2 grant announcements. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but that's something you all planned for. And then other things, promotion, marketing, events, administrative duties, etc. But here's the overview of and priority allocation is spent out in that plan. You can see some of the high or near term is here, Riverwalk, the streetscape, facade, all in that near term or high priority issues. So I know that I was unable to present that last month, but wanted to kind of headed up for possible discussion. Okay. We have had some good communication with Jeff at DPW about when things, Christmas decorations will come down. I wanted to kind of not have a full-blown discussion today, but just kind of let you know that Christmas decorations are for Christmas, right? They should come down at a reasonable time. We celebrated or noted Epiphany or Three Kings Day or Orthodox Christmas, whatever faith tradition you follow. We'll note that this past Sunday. So I think it's reasonable to say, let's take it down, since we're past that Christmas holiday. But anyway, Jeff had asked, what a little bit of what we could do. I think that makes reasonable sense. Does anybody have any issues with that? I mean, we don't want to keep it up till March, right? So, thoughts? Okay. All right.
I think it's, sometime, January to middle of January, just my opinion, depends on snowstorms and other things going on.
It starts to
If
get
I-
ready.
If I could just say something briefly, when we had the blizzard, the garland that was on the bridges got blown apart. It tore all the lights. So as opposed to having half on, half off, we stripped them. Today, we're taking the Christmas tree down, the big tree. Same thing, we're having issues with the lights. We can wiggle them and they work for a day and then they go back off. So we kind of are losing that battle, so the tree's coming down. I mentioned to Mark in our staff meeting yesterday that the garland, we used to take those down the first week of January. Then there was some requests from previous DDA boards to try to leave those up as long as possible. And we don't have a problem leaving those up. They are starting to turn a little brown, but just wanted to make sure we don't take them down and, and you guys be upset by it, so.
I think the first week in January is reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, and weather dependent.
Sure.
I mean, if we have a blizzard that first week, the crews need to be working on something else other than decorations. So,
Doesn't seem to be priority.
Okay,
Thank
you.
Yeah.
thank you for that. And then let me jump over to economic development. December was kind of a short month for me. We had 8 contacts with our 2 priority projects. Please remember Gateway's priority project between the Northern Hotel and the 348 River Street, which is River Street Hotel. That's the Music Vault location. We had 8 contacts, and so still working on that. We also performed a few business retention visits, one of them very intensive with Third Coast Boutique, the veteran-owned, veteran-oriented Makers Square kind of place, talking about a potential expansion for them. So had some good contacts there, and it is a lot smaller than my normal monthly report in terms of contacts and work. The project out in Manistee Township, the 288 apartment, market rate apartment project, did take up a lot of my economic development time. Chamber organized a sign-on letter to the township. 11 businesses signed on, representing 1,480 employees. And there's a strong need for housing units. And when you look at the last Housing North report, there's 400 single-unit homes, a need for that many homes, and there's a 500-unit need for apartments. And so that particular project will knock off half of the stated need. Now, that's pre-pandemic, and we need to do another study, but that's kind of the thing. And
500 regular income apartments?
no, that's
Okay.
thank you.
There's a difference.
There is a difference, and so we have a lot of, and Karen, Yeah, I know where you're coming from, and you're right. We have, when you look at that 2019 report, most of that's restricted income. So, yeah, you're right on about that. But there is a lot of housing need, and all the pieces need to work, right? But we've got this one going. We want to encourage it to get up because it will help overall. And maybe some folks will trickle up with the housing needs, but we need to be cognizant of that. The chamber is. So.
Just a quick question about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Is the housing that you're discussing with Karen, is that do we know if that's retirees that are going to be utilizing that, or will it be young families that would be people that would be in those entry-level positions in the workforce?
Income, whoever can afford it.
Whoever can afford it.
And I'm just thinking of the hospitality industry in my own mind and thinking about people coming in to the community to fill positions that have been unfilled for several years now. And just wondering, is that an expectation that those of us who have those entry-level positions in our businesses, will we see any reprieve from that?
That's the hope. And the plan is for 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, so they should be, they're not going to be 4 bedroom apartments and $2,800 a month. They should be in the low thousands.
Okay.
But those details haven't been discussed yet.
Okay.
1 and 2 bedroom apartments are going to be about the range for the plans, so that should put it in the reasonable range. We've also had discussions about some of the major employers pre-leasing so that they can help recruit all sorts of folks. Here's a particular issue, is that when an engineer is, I'll just use PCA for example, when an engineer is hired at PCA, maybe it's a young person, young family coming in, they look around for a house and cannot find a house, and so they either buy something in Ludington, moving the money out of our communities, or they don't take the job. And so if we pre-lease or have some element of pre-leasing, then the hospital, the manufacturers, perhaps others, might be able to provide a place for those professionals to stay in the interim until they can locate a house. And that might take 6 months, as some of us know. So anyway, I think there's a lot of pieces here that help solve the puzzle. I think that's it. Anyway, I've gotten far afield here with the downtown economic development report, but that's part of the reason why the chamber and I have pivoted in the month of December, and it reflects in these numbers in order to deal with the housing issues.
Mark, can I ask if you know, or maybe T, you know, I don't know who's was behind that project, but a housing unit's up on 22 and 31 across from the casino. Is that going to go, or is that?
I do not know.
Okay, all right. All right. I was just wondering about that one, if you've heard anything either.
No.
Okay.
All right, Carmen, is there anything I missed? I got a field, I got a little distracted. That's where we're at. Our team approach is, I greatly appreciate having a team of people to help with this work. Carmen and Cassidy and Stacy all are pitching in and doing pieces or elements of the administration for the DDA. And I think that provides you with a continuity of service and some consistency in terms of what we can provide. So everything seems to be going fine. So that's my report.
Thank you, Mark. Moving in to item 8, ad hoc committees. Anything to report on facade grants, Mark?
I actually have a great deal to report here. One of the things that I worked on during the month of December and finished up this month. MEDC has a facade rehabilitation initiative grant program that they're going to start back up again. Tyler Lepinen, when he was executive director here, applied for a grant on behalf of the DDA to MEDC, and the grant was actually approved for funds to go into our downtown facade grant program. For reasons yet that I don't quite understand, the state, the MEDC, did not let that money to the city, to the DDA. And so the money never came in order to implement the program. It might have been a budgetary issue, might have been a legislative halt on all, whatever it was. It didn't come. So MEDC reached out shortly after our discussion about the grants and our own discussion about our $50,000 and said, would Manistee DDA be willing to put in a grant application and reapply? Now, the conditions were, and I had hoped that we'd be able to put in for $500,000 and have multi-year funding for our facade grant. That didn't quite fly. That was hopeful thinking. But the terms were that you have to obligate the money in 23, spend out by 24, and that you needed to have shovel-ready projects ready to go. So as the committee that we worked with wanted to fund all of the applicants that came in, we had 3 of those. Elks, the Purdom Building or Brandon Ball Dwelling Real Estate, and Elks, Purdom, and the third one was what? Which one?
Neither the Bluefish got approved.
Right.
For Kainos.
Oh, I'm sorry?
I was thinking for Kainos, but that wasn't.
No. I'll work through it if I kind of get myself talking about it. We also had 2 Match on Main grants, one that was approved but then turned down for the Bluefish, and then the second one was for the restaurant going into the old Fillmore restaurant to create outdoor seating in the back. Piecing those 5 together, we put in an application for those 5, and when you looked at the overall cost of all the projects, it was $288,000. MEDC says they would go up to half, 50%. So we asked for 115. Our 10% match is required from the DDA, and then the remainder could be paid for by the building owners. So what we've done with that application is essentially take for 1 year the program from a 50-50 match program and take it to a 60-40 match, which makes it a little bit easier on the building owners. And we have 5 shovel-ready projects ready to go. So that application was put in this week, finalized on Monday or Tuesday. And we're waiting to hear back from MEDC on their review of that. So we may tweak it or do whatever we need to do. But I think that's likely we'll get that, especially since we're asking for so little. Given what parameters we have. If we budget for another $50,000 on the facade grant for the coming fiscal year, 23 will be obligated for the match on this program. That gives us $27,000 that we can still play with and put out another round of grants. So I think if we're able to do that, it'll be great. But that's the solution to having 5 great applications and then being able to find a pot of money for that. So,
Mark, one of those applications wanted LED lighting sign. Did we clarify if that was allowed in the historic district?
so it turns out that the HDC approved that.
Oh, all right.
So the LED lighting on the Elks was approved by HDC,
Great.
and that's good.
Good.
The third one I couldn't think of was Spicer Group
Oh, yeah,
and the
yeah.
Rick Jacks building.
Right.
And they're going to be doing a complete refresh with lighting, awnings, and taking out the windows on the garage door and turning it into an office setting. So they're creating more office space and expanding services. That's going to be a refresh on the front of that building. So that's the other project.
Okay, thank you. Update on streetscape. Mark?
Oh, thought you had enough of me talking.
Yes.
So we will have a meeting on the 17th with the vendor. It will include the city and the city attorney. We're moving towards that agreement being finalized. They are anxious to get to work, and I think we're just catching up from Christmas on where we're at with them, but and where they're at as well. But they're ready to get to work and would like to get that nailed down so they can get started. They will probably start immediately after having a service agreement.
Thank you. District businesses update, anything, Deanna?
I do have
Okay.
a couple of things.
Please.
Thank you. I actually have a few things, but since this meeting's getting a little long, I can talk about a couple of them next month for sure. In-face meeting is January 17th. We have some really, I can't think of her name, the gal from the city that's going to talk about signage will be there. So if any downtown businesses have any questions about signage, that will be the place to bring that. So I'm excited about that. Also, there's a veterans group that will be there. And Carmen did put out the email to the whole district yesterday. So thank you for that. I will also be doing some in-face visits to remind people, especially our new people, the veterans, the boutique downtown. I know they're really interested in being a vital part of this. So I'm really looking forward to a good meeting there. The second thing that I have, which I feel is just extremely important, we need to start talking about it now, so I'm going to bring it up. I would like to see a strong reorganization of the Christmas Victorian Sleigh Bell Weekend, the committee. It's vital that it gets reorganized. It's vital that we have more input put to it. It needs to go back to its Victorian roots. I think that there were a lot of positive things with the Sleigh Bell Weekend this week, but I see where we are getting away from Jerry's original idea from 35 years ago, and we're allowing football uniforms in the parade. It's not Victorian. There needs to be more family events, more community involvement. Every 10 years, we're up for the Clydesdale horses to come to our town. That application had to be in by January 30th. That has not been done. Now we're past COVID, those things can happen. It's one of the biggest events that we hold all year long, and it doesn't need to be, for lack of a better term, a popularity contest. It needs to have the greater good of the whole community and the downtown district involved, and it needs to be reorganized. So I'm asking if this is the place that we start that, or do I need to go to city council with this? But just know that this is a passion of many, not just mine. I guess there were some lights missing or couldn't be found, or they're old, or like these things can be addressed if we had some bigger sponsors, some more sponsors. We can get some more lighting. That's my say on that. I just wonder if I have support of this committee to look into that or to start doing that, or some discussion on that.
Well, I can answer it a little bit. The event is not of the DDA. It's the Sleigh Bell Committee.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go to the Sleigh Bell Committee directly.
We do put money aside to support, correct?
We did not sponsor it
That
this
this
year.
year? Okay.
Okay.
I have always encourage that group to become an independent, 501c3. I think they could do a lot more fundraising. I think they could take contributions.
Correct.
I
And that
don't
needs,
think anybody really has any control.
Well, the Ramsdale took on as the fiduciary this last year. It was part of this overall Victorian weekend with their events at Ramsdale. But I just kind of, this year I did notice we had a lot of complaints about the Christmas tree lights. I know Jeff tried to put some more on. We had issues with that. But then I'm looking at it, didn't have Christmas tree lights in Victorian era, and I feel like we do half of each, no one's happy. So it's almost like if maybe the DDA wanted to do it separate, like lit Christmas tree like they have in Traverse City, maybe we do that, and we just have to, so just something to think about. But I understand what you're saying, like when you compromise a couple of things, and it kind of puts into question a lot of bigger things.
I don't know, maybe it would be nice to have a representative from that group come and chat about it.
Well, I can tell you that the committee is consistent. It's been pretty consistent for years. When the DDA kind of stepped aside from that committee continued on. Like Bill said, they were able to get the Rams still to be their fiduciary, and Janet Dushan and Dave Mix are kind of, and Rachel Brooks are probably the top three. And if you get a hold of them, I'm sure that they would be happy to have additional participation or ideas. Their regular meetings start this month, so planning for next year.
okay, so can that meeting time be announced or made public? I mean, can other people come in and voice their expression as to wanting to be on that committee?
I would get a hold of one of the three of them.
Janet Brooks.
And ask Janet Dushan, Dave Mix, or Rachel Brooks.
Correct.
It's been a long-standing committee.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep, I'm
Yeah.
aware of that.
But maybe it's time to have it come up to the surface of a more community transparency.
Correct.
Anything else, Deanna?
I think that's it. Just
Okay.
the meeting, spread the word, because we really want participation in that for downtown.
January 17th.
January
Okay.
17th at 8:30,
Where?
right here.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Beautification, Kelly, anything?
There are a lot of preliminary things happening, but nothing to report at this time.
Okay, thanks for your work. Old business, EDA Riverwalk Improvement Grant. Bill?
So our committee met, and I know some, Cal, you offered to be involved. We ended up having 9 people on the committee. Typically for an RFP committee, one about 5, but a lot of interest, a lot of support. So we did have the finalized version. We had a meeting last Thursday. The RFP went out yesterday. So we're hoping that, the plan is to have the proposals back by February 7th. We have a walkthrough scheduled, meeting here at the college on the 20th of January at 10 a.m. So Mark will make sure you put it in your calendar, but I guess anyone else from the committee or would like to be involved, you're more than welcome. So we'll do a kind of a sign-in sheet, take the vendors around. It's non-mandatory, recommended that they be there. And then we'll have, plan to have the approval on the council agenda in March. So they're supposed to have, our deadline's going to have construction start, and that could mean just kind of a start work order, but in September. So there's a tight deadline, and I'm kind of hoping we'll have the streetscape contract going, and then with that all kind of buttoned up, we'll have also that contract kind of ready to go for the Riverwalk as well. So, and construction scheduled. It's the deadline with the ED grant is for it to be done in December of 2024. So likely a lot of work's going to be done not this summer, but next summer.
Okay.
So I'll be keeping you guys praised to that.
Great, thank you. Tax abatement district update.
So we're working with Mark, and appreciate the DDA's support of the overall CRA and OPRA district, kind of really pushing to get this done for Christmas, and we're kind of getting into the details about the notices that were required for that overall district. So we'd have to send a certified letter to all real property owners for both districts. We kind of saw that We had the legal description made, which is about almost a full page of legal description for the district, which was fine. And then I was discussing with Mark about Q&As that we can maybe include in the letter, so if anyone had questions about what's this all about. The more we looked into it, then we had a meeting with the Treasury, Department of Treasury, Patrick Huber, who kind of go over some concerns our legal counsel had. George was concerned about it had to be contiguous, and we're going over the river with it. There are it's supposed to be real property owners, contiguous with real property owners, so we could make the argument that it's not contiguous. We could also talk about roads not being, with passing over roads. So I'm looking into that a little bit more about other districts that were established, but really, and then there was kind of, if people did something in the district, would they automatically be eligible? So there's kind of a risk there that our attorney was concerned about. And I think Mark had that non-binding resolution we discussed. Ultimately, after a couple hours looking into this, we're kind of thinking the better way to go about it may be just kind of, here's the area where we're going to entertain OPRAs and CRAs, our clerks comfortable with, sending out the notices, getting them in the paper for the individual districts. And it was kind of thought it would be a streamlined approach, but with having to do certified mail to everyone, I think it actually probably would create more work. But we can kind of promote the idea that we're ready for development, the investment in these properties. So I think right now, we discussed at our staff meeting yesterday, we'd be having a policy and promoting it in a similar vein about this is the area. And I think that's kind of, ultimately we want to show that we're going to be really looking at supporting investment through these incentives in this area. So I know it's kind of, when you start diving into these things, sometimes you find out they're a little more messy than you think. But I think we can accomplish the goal. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, thank you. TIF presentation? You
I did it already.
Yeah, thank you. I thought so.
We're done.
Bill, do you have more on social district?
And I think this was just,
Thanks, Jeff.
And Jeff, before you go, is Tanner working on one of these, or we're still?
We're ready to start
Okay.
when we're given the go-ahead.
Okay, so we'll just wanted to pass this around. I think the conversation with North Channel and some other of the social district licensees was maybe doing more in the winter. And I know in the previous city I worked for, we had these, I don't know if anyone can see, but there were these kind of fire pits, and they're portable, but not really portable. They're pretty heavy, and we can secure them. But we're looking at maybe if the DDA is interested, we're looking at maybe trying to fabricate one. But that's just an example. But we could have just a couple ideas for locations that Maple Street Bridge at that southeast corner, that could be kind of an area, maybe by the Christmas tree arena, and then the art park if they permit that. But the idea, maybe the social district licensee would pay for the firewood if we wanted to do that, and just it could just be kind of a passive thing that it's available. It's maybe it's coordinated, but just I think it might be good for a representative of each licensee to kind of meet with maybe the DDA executive director, just come up with some ideas on these things. But that was something I wanted to bring up, and I'll do it under this one as well. But last night we had discussion about the dining platforms. We're kind of at the point during COVID, they were allowed to kind of help the businesses, and then we didn't this last year. Technically, our ordinance doesn't allow for it, so we wanted to kind of bring it back to council and the DDA, but we can amend the ordinance to allow them, and I think the businesses, the restaurants invested, Mark was saying $10,000 in each of those, and I don't know if they've made their money back, but I think it's made the downtown kind of, that's a part of the experience, is the dining out on River Street. So it came up last night that does the DDA support the dining platforms? I said, the executive director does, but we talked about it a little bit today. So just want to open it up if anyone had any thoughts. a lot of this, we did have a complaint from a certain property owner about dedicated parking, if that's allowed for that. So I anticipate some pushback, at least from one property owner, but I guess in general, I just wanted to see if the DDA was supportive of.
Why wouldn't you want a dining platform?
Right.
They're awesome.
Yes.
It's
That's
that
right.
parking stuff, but we got 2 big parking lots.
Yeah.
Well, and I can't sit here and not bring up parking, so.
We're talking about dining platforms.
No. I'm all for them, but it does take away some parking, and so I'm all for, and I know that'll be part of the streetscape, so it's not a big thing, but just better signage for where there is additional parking across the river, the parking lots in the back. So, if we're gonna have this, then let's have this, maybe buy those dining platforms, enjoy dining, 2 hour down there, but if you're gonna shop and dine, maybe you could park in the back. Just some creative parking ideas to be able to not make other business owners upset that we're taking up parking.
Yeah, at one time, signage for our parking lots and stuff was a big issue. I don't know if we ever really resolved it and got, suitable signage, but.
We do, but it's always the path of least resistance, and we also don't have an enforcement mechanism, which has been tough. But getting back to the platform, I support them. I think they're cool. I think it'd be nice to re-look at them with the streetscape plan, not to get rid of them, but maybe enhance or improve or encompass them more, maybe make them safer. I'll make a not PC comment that this particular business owner does park in front of his own business or in other 2 hour parking spots, so not really a concern at this point. There's lots of parking downtown.
May I say one?
Please, go ahead, Mark.
I just want to point out for folks, as we work on business retention, expansion, of course, the platforms came at a time of COVID, but what we're seeing is, and I've heard this from one particular restaurant, is that 30% of their summer revenues are coming from those seating options. So it's highly popular and helps them be successful and survive the doldrum months where we don't have outdoor options and we don't have tons of people coming in. The other thing just to keep in mind is that the DDA did not pay for the platforms. That was an expense, an investment that the restaurant owners paid for. And for a 2-space platform, it's $10,000. So they made a significant investment in that option. And so just keep those things in mind, that as we're trying to retain our businesses, keep our restaurants open, this is an important piece of that.
Okay.
And then just the last thing was the bird scooters came up last night, so the contract ended in December, and we had some discussion about continuing. We had over 6,800 rides that were taken with it, so they were popular. There was concern about people under 18 riding them, but someone, I think probably parents, are getting booked in, and there was concerns about helmets and safety. And one thing we're going to try to work through with our rep is they said that they'll provide a helmet to anyone who wants one. They just have to pay the $5 shipping fee. We're thinking maybe we can just have 10 on hand at any time to hand out to someone who wants one, but I think probably having some locations that would be able to hand them out would be helpful. So I don't want this building or another business downtown, but just something to think about if someone is interested.
Was there general support to renew the contract?
There was general support.
Okay.
Just concerned about getting picked up quicker and kind of the youth use it.
I rented them for my kids.
It's kind of fun to see where they land, It's like, oh, there's one.
I didn't
that's
even
kinda like
I didn't even realize you had to be 18.
Yeah.
And I think at the beginning it was kind of finding out where people go to and from. And
Sure.
So they were kind of letting them just. So I think this next year, I think knowing the patterns, they can kind of tighten up the pickup time.
Do you have access to that data?
They do have, they have kind of a heat map. They did find out, some people were dropping them in the lake, and they had some losses. So they had some random, they showed them like, oh, these ones will like.
There's a criteria for renewing that contract. We need access to that data.
They do have, they do have a site.
Well, yeah, because that's real good planning information, transportation planning.
I can get a couple screenshots, maybe the next
I want the
meeting.
data.
Oh,
I want data.
I can see the hard numbers.
Spreadsheets, downloads.
Average drive time. They have it.
Yeah.
Bill, were there any injuries reported?
Our police department wasn't aware. I'm sure I've heard just anecdotal stories, but we haven't had any that I've heard of major incidents.
Thanks, Bill. Moving on to new business, Oprah and Brownfield plan and resolution for 348 River Street, which is being called.
River Street Hotel, that's a working title.
Thank you.
It'll change again. Okay, so the Brownfield Authority, the city's Brownfield Authority has requested a resolution of support from the DDA to help with the capture and the expenditures on this project. And so the resolution that was in your packet basically outlines a few things. It says that the DDA supports transferring its TIF capture on the project over to the Brownfield Authority in order to support this project. It limits the amount of money, not to exceed $227,000 and $170 for administrative expenses. So you're talking essentially nearly $400,000 cap. And so the DDA would transfer these revenues to the BRA in order to support those remediation plans. It does not mean that they would use all of that money. It means that that's what they would be limited to. And so that is the resolution that's being requested by Ed Bradford and the city BRA. My editorial comment here is that this is one of those activities that you are essentially joining into a partnership with the city and the developer to help encourage the development of one of our downtown buildings. So, the thinking here is that by us giving up a little bit, we'll eventually have more investment in our downtown, specifically about this project, but then that should spur on other increases that we'll be able to see over time and the amount of TIF that we'll have coming in. So there'll be a couple of these on the larger projects. It also states here in the Brownfield plan that the overall investment in the building is going to be $3 million plus. So that's the amount of money they're going to put into it. They're asking for the TIF capture in order to take care of lead, asbestos, and other things that are in the building. So anything that's eligible under cleaning up the property, that's what they want to be able to use it for. So I ask for your consideration and an approval of this resolution, again, provided in your packet.
Just a quick question, how long does the TIF capture that they want to have?
It'll take you out, I believe, to 2037.
My thought is, given the fact that the assessor has deemed it obsolete, we're not giving up a lot compared to what we have to gain.
Yeah.
Shrug.
That's good.
And so Oprah's are 12 years, and I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Thanks, Bruce. Any discussion or questions on the motion or the project? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Renewal of the economic development contract with the economic development arm of the chamber. This was in well, it didn't make it to the packet last meeting, did it?
No, it did not.
Okay, so
It's in this
hopefully you've had some time to review this and the old contract. It is written as a memorandum of understanding. And I just want to open up the floor here for any discussion or questions. More?
Sorry, do you need before you get a motion to approve it, discussion before?
Yeah, I'm just offering discussion or questions about it. I'll read a couple bullet points here. This is in an effort to continue to promote and develop redevelopment-ready community, RRC sites as identified by the City of Manistee and identifying other development opportunities, attract new businesses to the downtown, work towards occupancy and storefronts. This is a $20,000 ask. Last time it was $15,000. My personal opinion is that this is a small contribution to a large effort. The city contributes to this. Who else contributes to this?
So the city, 20,000, the county, 40,000, and then the private sector also contributes. And so most of your major employers, Little River Holdings, the Munson Hospital, Martin Marietta, PCA, Morton Salt. You have others as well.
Blarney Castle.
Blarney Castle, thank you. Can't forget that. And then some other ones that come in at smaller amounts. So the overall effort's a private-public partnership.
Okay. Go ahead, Bruce.
I think it's a small part of a very large effort. This is a kind of unique approach to economic development. Other communities have staffed agencies working on economic development. The fact that it is, housed in a non-government entity is unusual, and it's unusual that so many different entities contribute in the form of, these agreements to that effort. And what is really unusual is the level of sophistication and effectiveness of our effort. It's an enviable team working on economic development, and we have the benefit of discussing economic development at every meeting. For a city of 6,000 people, it's impressive.
There is a history that there was a company, and it was a city-county effort to have that going, and we learn from our mistakes, and this is what we evolved to.
Yeah, this is pretty fabulous. 20 is a bargain.
Yep.
Okay, so this is up on the floor. It actually expired last month, so.
Motion to approve the...
As
Motion
written.
to approve
As written.
for you to sign in this agreement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Do you want two different motions, one for paying for the money, and then you to put us in this agreement? Should we split those up?
I think authorizing the agreement does both.
Okay, all right.
Authorizing Cal to sign it.
Do we do a roll call for the money?
We have a motion. Did you second it?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Kelly, could you do a roll call?
Karen Goodwin.
Yes.
Kelly Grebe. Yes.
Jody Walter.
Yes.
Bruce Allen.
Yes.
Kyle Moser.
Yes.
Kevin DePonio.
Yes.
Bill Campbell.
Yes.
Deanna Marsh.
Yes.
Thank you, Kelly. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts and your entire team.
Thank you.
Moving on to other. Is there any other? No.
If I may?
Yes.
Just real quick, I forgot to mention earlier, included in your packet at the very end was a budget calendar from the city. I failed to mention that, our deadline is March 10th to submit a budget to the city staff. So we'll be working in the next 2 months to kind of put that together. So we'll see some more work in the February meeting and perhaps a little bit in the March meeting to get that ready for submission. So just wanted you to know that's the timeline. And then after that, we'll have probably have some availability in front of City Council.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, public comment? Bruce?
Oh,
sorry.
Is everyone in favor of maybe pursuing that, or do we want to wait until next meeting?
Oh, the fire pit.
The fire pit?
What would pursual look like, just in terms of having it built, or?
So it looks like that one's on sale for $999. We could try to fabricate one.
Mhm.
It might be good to have one that we try out and then see if we want to do more. Okay, and I don't know if we can do a motion to buy that one in the next bill, but.
We had discussed a local manufacturer, Power Industries, which is just south of the county line. Is somebody I tried to recruit into the county, and I got him out of Oceana, just almost to Manistee. But they're also a supplier for Thoroughbred Boat Company. I'd like to maybe see if Powers can maybe fabricate it so we have it locally, and I'd be happy to do that and see what it might and get a cost, and hopefully not to exceed what it is on the link that Bill provided.
Thank you.
Yeah. that's
Bill, I
reasonable.
heard verbiage also in there of firewood. That's not a small expense.
No,
So
it's not.
when are we using firewood? Is it wrapped around an event? Is it on a Saturday, Sunday afternoon? When are we using the firewood? What's the cap on the firewood? Because that is not, we're talking $900 fabrication, but we could be talking $3,000 of firewood.
And my thought was someone sponsors it, and, one of the social district licensees would sponsor it for a night or something like that.
Start the fire and manage it, sure.
Well, pay for the fire, yeah, and those are good questions.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. If you go on the Cadillac's website, the city has a fire pit, in the middle of their park area. And it's beautiful, it's great, it's gas. And it's enclosed, so you don't have the persons, screwing with it. But I think the fire pit thing is a great idea. It will enhance the winter experience. Maybe this is an experimental, see how it goes, make that investment, and then think about something permanent as we are redoing everything.
And I've heard that about, having a fireplace on the street, being a more permanent structure. So my thought would, someone would have to sponsor it, and I don't think we could just allocate city staff to put wood in the front.
Right. Or who pays for the wood?
Well, let's.
Well, I heard you say somebody would sponsor it, but we're kind of doing if this, then that, but we're talking about purchasing something without those answers.
Yeah. So I think we'll get that cost, Mark will see how much that costs, and then, you're right, we're just discussing it possibly.
When the city takes down trees or limbs and stuff, we can repurpose that wood.
All right, let's move to public comment, and we'll move to board member comment after that. Gordy.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So last late spring, you all funded a little project that Mark Wall Sanchez and I did behind the Gardein building with the native plants. And so we presented that as phase one. We really didn't know precisely what we were doing, and we're still figuring it out. And so phase 2 is going to include some educational plaques, and the posts for those have already been fabricated, so we just need to have the plaques made. And probably some additional plans. So in the next couple months, I'll be talking with Mark and probably you, Kelly, and maybe a few other people to get a better idea of what we're looking at. And my question is just, are y'all interested in providing some funding for that? Last year it was $2,000. I don't imagine it being anywhere near that. Like you put in $2,000, I probably paid a couple $100 for some additional plans. Anyway, is that realistic?
It looked nice. I thought it was nice. I like it.
My opinion is that we have money budgeted for those types of things, so certainly.
All right. So in the next couple months, at least by March, we ought to have a plan, know what we're doing.
Could you maybe just either bring it to Kelly or Mark, and it can come in front of the board, and
Sure.
any estimates or anything like that?
You bet. Okay.
Great.
Thanks, Gordy.
You bet. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Board member comment? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.